Well, the F1 summer break has now finally come to a close, meaning I can come out of my little man cave and start slagging off F1 drivers again. And this weekend, we were headed back to Spa-Francorchamps, a race which we were all looking forward to last year, until it turned out to be about as interesting as watching paint dry for 2 hours. Anyway, with the likelihood of rain giving most F1 fans a semi, maybe we were in store for a more exciting Grand Prix this time around. Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1, the channel that brings you weekly comedy reviews and basically nothing else. And speaking of, welcome to the comedy review, as F1 came out of hibernation for the start of the second half of the season in Belgium. Before we jump into things, if this is your first time on the channel and you end up enjoying the video, don't forget to click on those like and subscribe buttons, as that really helps me out. Also, if you want to be featured in the intro like you saw earlier, make sure you follow me over on Twitter. It's at FP1Will, and the link for that you can find down in the description below. Anyway, let's not waste any more time and get started with the title card now, shall we? Last time out, we saw Esteban Ocon and Alpine take their first victories in Formula 1, followed closely by Sebastian Vettel in P2 for Aston Martin. Unfortunately for Vettel, however, he found himself disqualified after his car wasn't able to let go of enough of its piss for a sufficient testing sample. Aston, though, would fire back, claiming that, as always seems to be the case, they were in the right, and there was still more fuel left in Vettel's car, quickly filing for an appeal on the decision. However, this is also the team that claimed they didn't blatantly copy Mercedes last year, so to the shock of no one, said appeal was promptly rejected by the FIA. In other news heading into the weekend, Sergio Perez and Fernando Alonso would announce contract extensions with their respective teams for 2022, though this was about as surprising as finding out Love Island contestants have an average IQ of 3. One contract that was still yet to be announced was that of George Russell, stepping into the Mercedes car for next year, and we were instead subjected to an awkward interview between him and Valtteri Bottas on Thursday, where one driver seemed rather happier than the other. I'll let you figure out which one I'm talking about here, but let's jump straight into the racing, starting with FP1 in rather damp conditions. Valtteri Bottas would take top spot here, as several drivers up and down the grid struggled in the difficult conditions, most notably Kimi Räikkönen, who despite having a strong record at Spa, seemed to forget how to enter the pit lane, damaging his Alfa Romeo as he finished an early stint. Yuki Tsunoda would also showcase his main character trait of spinning off the track, losing the rear at turn 1, but unlike normal, actually managed to keep his car out of the barriers, so well done for that, I guess. Mercedes, however, seemed to have the early pace, despite Nicholas Latifi attempting to assassinate #blessed at the final corner. Bottas was also in store for a tough race despite finishing P1 in first practice, with a 5-place grid penalty giving him the opportunity to take even more cars out into turn 1 this weekend. Now, second practice would be more of a Red Bull affair, as the Spa circuit caused more problems for the drivers on Friday. Charles Leclerc had had a small off into the gravel in FP1, though decided he wanted another go at the beach and ripped off the front corner of his Ferrari in a crash that required him to pick up a new chassis for the rest of the weekend. Formula 1's latest winner Esteban Ocon also decided he hadn't finished celebrating his result in Hungary, putting on some smoke displays for the fans at turn 14. While Max Verstappen also tried to please his supporters at the end of the session by showing them a close-up of what the rear of his Red Bull looks like. This wouldn't stop him from taking the top spot at the end of the session though, as Bottas and Hamilton completed the top 3 for Mercedes. Moving into Saturday, and God decided to urinate even more on the Spa circuit, with FP3 taking place in intermediate conditions. Kimi Räikkönen's weekend only appeared to get worse, his brakes deciding to give up the ghost and putting him out for the rest of the session. It was looking even better for Red Bull though, as they continued their strong pace and topped the timings again, with Max Verstappen and Perez making it a 1-2 for the Milton Keynes-based squad. But other than that, it was a fairly quiet and uneventful session to start the day. But oh boy, would qualifying make up for that. Further rain would delay the session by 15 minutes, as all teams bar the 2 Williams drivers emerged on wet tyres. The Grove squad decided to spice things up, however, throwing intermediate tyres onto George Russell and Nicholas Latifi's cars, which went well. For one of them, Latifi was able to recover from his spin and help get both cars into Q2, as the Alfa Romeos, Hasses and Yuki Tsunoda all dropped out of Q1. It was Lando Norris on top though as we entered the session, prompting me to tip him for pole on Twitter. And oh, how badly that aged. Norris was also on top of Q2, as the changeable conditions caught several drivers out, and Mercedes continued their strange strategy calls from Hungary, being the only team to send their cars out on old intermediate tyres. This Ferrari-inspired call almost cost them a place in the final part of qualifying, though Hamilton and Bottas managed to get their cars into Q3 regardless. Speaking of Ferrari, the team that won here in 2019, or albeit with their questionable engine tactics at the time, found themselves unable to progress to Q3 in 2021, joining Latifi, Stroll and Alonso in the drop zone. And that just leaves us with Q3 then, and with even more rain coming down, several drivers began to complain to race control and call for a red flag. However, race director Michael Massey, being his usual incompetent self, ignored said calls, so hopefully then we'll be able to make it through without an incident. Sake, Massey. Lando Norris turning his McLaren into a carbon fiber fidget spinner forced officials to bring out that red flag that everyone had asked for anyway. And on a serious note here, guys, come on, why have we not done something about this corner yet? It's honestly a joke at this point. Anyway, after a 45-minute wait, we were able to go racing once again. And with the track developing constantly, literally anyone had the chance to snag pole. Now, no one really thought that the Williams of George Russell would be in the mix. However, Mr. Saturday pulled it out of the bag once again, going quicker than both Mercedes cars and lining up P2 on the grid. Now look, if somehow Bottas still retains this seat, I will literally lead the march to Brackley myself. Also, if you cared, Verstappen got pole, but look, that's not a huge shock, let's be honest. So with more rain predicted for Sunday, the 2021 Belgian Grand Prix was poised to be one of the most unpredictable of the year. So let's not waste any more time and jump straight into it. And I wrote that line into my script on Saturday night, not really realising how badly it would age 24 hours later. The most action we saw all day was before the race even started, with Sergio Perez showing Red Bull why he deserved a contract extension by putting his car into the wall on his warm-up lap. This sadly would foreshadow what was to come, with the race being red flagged after just a couple of laps behind the safety car. Cue 3 hours of painful waiting around as Michael Massey and his band of utter incompetent fools tried to figure out how to start the race, or even if the race had started altogether. Sorry, what? Anyway, once F1 had sorted its together, we got out again. But would we get any racing this time? Of course fucking not. Now, if you want my personal opinion, we probably should have just kept going at the very beginning, when conditions were arguably at their best, and we then maybe had a chance of moving some of that standing water and maybe, just maybe, getting a few racing laps in there before the rain got worse. At the end of the day, though, we do have to think a little bit about safety, and in a weekend full of scary incidents, though my heart says we should have gone racing, my head tells me I'm an utter fucking idiot for even considering it. Hey, in better news, I mean George Russell would pick up his first podium for Williams, which is good, I guess, but I kind of feel I should be happier about that. So sadly, it's a dreary end to our race weekend. So to cheer you all up, have a compilation of Nikita Mazepin being a twat this season. So I hope that despite the circumstances, you still enjoyed the comedy review. And good news is, I'll be back with a bonus review later in the week going through the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix. And trust me, it's a good one. You don't want to miss it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to drop a like on the channel and subscribe if you're new. And as I said, I'll be back with a brand new one really, really soon. But until then, have a good one.